I get to share about two things I love today. We love working with Outreach Port Arthur and running that, and we got to host two mission teams this week, and so we had a middle school team, and they were really, I didn't know when they came, but they were really like a third and fourth grade group, which is the youngest we've ever worked with. It was like having a jillion of our Zachs running around. And yet God used that high energy and low skill level for his glory. And so that team also brought a couple that's Vietnamese speaking adults from Garland. And so we were just grateful. We got to go, the teams from South Cliff and Fort Worth, that was the young kid team. And also the older youth group from Freeman Heights Baptist Church in Arkansas. Those came and they worked and they visited over 200 homes in Mid-County. And they did that whenever they would share the gospel with people, and they would invite them to Cornerstone Church when they were in Nederland and in Port Neches. And whenever they were in North Port Arthur, they would invite them to Ridgewood. So we have a lot of different partner churches, and we're grateful for Cornerstone partnering with us. We're grateful for these mission teams that have come there. Those teams came and worked hard. Not only did they visit a whole lot of a whole lot of Vietnamese homes, which is part of our ministry. They also did a day and a half's work at Hope Women's Resource Clinic and did a ton of things there. They also we helped with community care, prayer outreach, packing up food, organizing their food that they give away to folks, to needy families. They also came and worked for Therefore International. Joey, they worked on y'all's mission house, helped gut that, and you said that they got done in half a day what it would have taken y'all 3 days, I think. So we're just grateful for that team, those teams, and just for the privilege that we have to do that. It's also my privilege to get to share about Joey, because he's going to preach today. Y'all can go ahead and y'all can clap after I say this, but we've just adopted, therefore, Joey, the Romeros, as our 13th missionary partner that we have. So go ahead and clap for them. They've been added to the mission map over there, so y'all can go check. They're crammed in there in the Africa section, but y'all can go check that out and just see that. Grateful. Clacy sent that to us, and Savannah, man, are y'all glad that Savannah puts those pictures together and the map and all that, because if it was up to me, that would look like crud. When I was a kid, they used to give me like my own special craft at VBS, because I'm almost special needs on crafts. Do you understand what I'm saying? So... Anyway, so Savannah, God just used her to just fill in so many horrible gaps, and so we're just grateful for her and just all the work she prepped all the lists for the Vietnamese homes, anyway, it's just tons of work, and we're exhausted, but we're grateful that Joey is here today, and he gets to just come share what God has put on his heart. We've known him, like I say, for more than 15 years, just in different ways that we've gotten to work together. We know some of their family very well, just lifelong friends that helped adopt our kids when we were at Ridgewood, and so we're just very grateful just for the Romeros, and I want to pray for them, and we're going to pray just that God will speak through him. So let's pray for Joey and Patty. God, we just thank you so much just for using us. We thank you that you use us as your ambassadors. We thank you that these missionaries have come from Texas and from Fort Worth and from Arkansas to come and work in this place in our name and in your name, Lord. And so we ask that you just help us as Cornerstone people to go out now this week and also share with the same folks maybe that our mission teams have been visiting. So we just pray that you'll help us to have more conversations about you with people in our neighborhoods and in our jobs and our work. And we ask that you just speak through Joey now. We ask you just bless. Therefore, we ask you just watch over them and provide for all their needs, and we pray you'll just speak to us. We thank you for how you've already done that in the first service, and ask you to do that now, and just help us to be receptive to your word and what you would have to say to us, and bless my brother Joey as he brings your word. In your name we pray, amen.
If you'll look on your pew or your row of chairs, whatever you want to call it, you'll see a handout with pencils in case you didn't bring yours. I bet you didn't know we're going to have class today. This is complete with, you get to circle stuff and underline things and fill in the blank. And at the close, I have a quiz. And we're shooting for 80% or better. No, just kidding. No quiz. But we will have a chance to look at the end of our time together at what God might reveal and what might He have us do. And so I'm hoping that if you don't have that copy, there's some at the ends of the rows there. If you don't have one of those sheets, I'd encourage you, if you've got young people with you, to have them maybe do some of the circling and the underlining and the filling in the blanking and all of those good things. But I do want to tell you that, when we were first looking at coming and trying to find a local church, I did what I guess everyday today people normally do. They go to the website and they look at all the things on the website, trying to figure out where you want to plug in, and then we came and visited, and I look at all the stuff on the back row there, and the literature that was there. The thing that stuck out to me was DNA, and the church isn't really engaging in that, but I think it's going to be doing that in the weeks and months to come. If you have an opportunity to participate in that training, I encourage you to do so. But I want to tell you what nailed the church down when I saw that. The map just was like, yeah, I got to join that church because they had this cool map. And it's made out of wood, and if I ever run away from you guys, there's a good chance you won't have it. I'll take it when I go. And no, we're happy to be a part of the team here. Already felt like we were a part of the team before any official announcement was made for us to be added as a part of the mission. Thank you so much. It's been a real privilege and an honor to walk along with you in the service of God. We have a lot of things to look at this morning, and again, our time in the Word is precious. And my prayer is that at the end of this, we won't be the same that we were when we walked in. That in some way, what God has imparted to us through His Word will change us, so that when we walk out of here, we won't walk out of here the same way we walked in. Can we agree to at least pursue that as we go into the Word? And let the Word speak to us. Let's try to speak into it, but let's let its voice become what we hear. And as we look into God's Word, let's do that. We want to turn first to Genesis chapter 1, and we're going to be reading in day 6, the very last thing God does on day 6 of creation. And in an effort to find some things that anchor me and you. And I remember in high school as a young guy coming through, and maybe those of you who are coming through high school now, do we have any seniors, juniors in here? I don't know if you're here, but I remember when I was going through that, and I know some of you who can look back that far, if you can remember that far back. We got some old geezers in here, at least one or two that I know of. I won't mention their name, but Mike's over here. And Mike could remember back that far. And the question that comes our direction is, what are you going to do? If you got a girlfriend, what's that about? Are you going to marry? You got a boyfriend, what's that about? Are you going to marry? Where do you think you might want to live? And my grandma wants me to be here. And you got a lot of voices speaking into you about what you're going to be and what you're going to do. In the effort to fulfill why you're here. I didn't have anything to do with me being born. My mom and dad had something to do with that. But me, I didn't have anything to do with it. I don't have anything to do with me being a man. I don't have anything to do with me being in America or Port Neches or anything else. I had no input into that. And yet, God had all that input. He made those decisions. So would it behoove me to look at what He has to say about why I'm here so that I can know why I exist? Let's read from verse 26 in chapter 1 of the book of Genesis. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." God created man in His own image, and in the image of God He created him, male and female He created them. God blessed them. God said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the sky and over every living thing that moves on the earth. May the Lord add his blessings to the reading of his word. Circle the word. You need a pencil or a pen for that. If you don't have one, we got some. Anybody need a pencil? Everybody's good to go. Circle the word that's repeated 3 times in verse 26 and 27. Starts with an I. Little I. Everybody see it? 3 words completed in the first 2 verses. You see it? All right, good. Got a circle around it. Underline the first commandment God gave to man in verse 28. The very first one. He gave several there, but the very first one, underline that commandment. Okay. So what's the word that he repeats 3 times? Image. And if you will believe it, there's also another word that means the same thing, likeness. So 4 times he repeats this thought. He says that we're going to create man, and he's going to be the image of us. Our purpose, we have just found it. God is speaking to me and you, and he's saying that we were put on this earth, whether you're in America, whether you're a man, you're a woman, whether you're a child, whether you're an old geezer like Mike. I mean, you're here to image God. And when we are fulfilling that role and we have an opportunity to walk in that, let me tell you, it's a good thing. It's a great thing. And, you know, to be a poet, and that's what you were put on the earth to be, and yet never learn how to write would be a absolute travesty. It would be a thing that would be so sad because you're not given what you need in order to fulfill that purpose. Me and you have been created to image God. And what's the first commandment that he gave? The one you underlined. Be fruitful and multiply. To multiply that image, to make more of those images. And I'm seeing them coming right and left. Your church is being faithful. When they come over to my house and we have little meetings in my house, I got them like, they're from about, I don't know, anywhere from about 2 or 3 months on up to about 2 years. And I got little gates, and I got a toy box now that we've added. It's really cool. And I believe that when Adam and Eve were given that command to be fruitful and multiply, that they immediately went to work on that. And the reason I believe that is because there's 2 kinds of sins that we can commit. There's a sin of commission, there's a sin of omission. And the first sin they committed is the one that got them cast out from the presence of God, and it wasn't that they weren't faithful to be fruitful and multiply. If they hadn't done that, that would have been the sin that parted them from God's presence. And yet it wasn't. It was the apple, if you will, the fruit. Wanting to know answers to things outside of God. Not trusting in the work that he had given them. Because, you know, after he completed this creation, on every day when he had completed, he said it was good. But on day 6, when he finished, he said, very good. And the last thing that he created was me and you. That was what was very good. And guys, you weren't the last. The lady was the last. And I believe she's the best. You can buy into that or not. So, man was created to fill in the blank, image God, and multiply God's image. How do we know what that image looks like? I mean, they had this golden thing going for them in that God was walking in and through the garden that they were living in. They could see him. They could talk to him. There was a relationship that they could have personally where they could speak to each other, look at each other, and for them, knowing what the image was and how to be that image and how to multiply that image is very simple. But for me and you, that has been removed because of the sin of the garden. So how do we know what he looks like? Let's go to Psalm 19. Psalm 19. C.S. Lewis writes in his chapter in Reflections on Sweetness. And what he says in that chapter as he speaks of psalms that are sweet, these are psalms that focus on the words of God. He writes that in the lyrics of the world, this poem is arguably one of the greatest that's ever been written. And out of all the poetry written in the Bible, it is the greatest in the Scriptures. Psalm 19. So let's look at why an educated man, a godly man, a man that had been a former atheist and was brought into the fellowship of God, who's looking into the Psalms with great appreciation for what's there, would make a statement like that, and see if we can also see the beauty that's in there that caused him to say those kinds of things. And as we look at the Psalms, remember the Psalms are not the same as our poetry. They're not rhymes of sound, they're rhymes of thought. So Mark Twain once wrote that poets are being feared above all writers because they don't get facts confused with truth. He's looking to communicate truth to me and you in such a way that we be able to grab it with our heart and our mind and make a change in who we are because we have taken it in and drank in its goodness. The heavens tell of the glory of God, and their expanse declares the work of his hands. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor their words. Their voice is not heard. Their line has gone out into all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he has placed a tent for the sun, which is like a groom coming out of his chamber. It rejoices like a strong person to run its course. Its rising is from one end of the heavens, and its circuit to the other end of them, and there is nothing hidden from its heat. Circle what the heavens tell and the expanse declares. Circle what the heavens tell and what the expanse declares. You see that? The heavens tell what? It's a phrase, 3 words. Glory of God. And the expanse declares the work of his hands. So here, David is opening this psalm, and he's declaring that in his search for the image of God, he sees evidence for that God being declared from the works of God. His glory revealed in his works. Me and you look for the works of people around us to speak about who they are, and each man's work speaks for him. God is no different. And his creation is one of the things we've been told is not his. It was there that took place by chance, or it was there that it just kind of was plugged in and it's going on its own, and there is no God as creator or even as an active participant in what's there. And yet the scriptures declare very differently, and David is declaring here that the work of creation is declaring the glory of God. And let's look at verse 4. Draw a box around the place the words of heaven reach. Do you see that? Verse 4, the line has gone out into all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. There is no place where creation's voice, if you will, where the glory of God as it's spoken through that creation are not declared. So every day we walk in that. Every day we are around and in and living in the creation. But more importantly, we can look at each other, because Marcus was created by God. And not only was he created by God, he was the finest thing that was ever created by him. And I can look in Marcus and I can marvel at the work of God, because God made him. And I can look at the people around me, and I can do the same thing when I look at those folks. I can see God's handiwork in the things that he does, and let that speak to me Why? Because I need to know how to image God. That's my purpose. And this other person was made in his image, and I need to know what God looks like. And he speaks to the ends of the world. Underline the word that describes what is hidden from the heat of the sun. David says that in his declaration, he's looking at this sun as if it's one of the greatest of all the non-living creations that God has put for us to see, and God has put for us to hear his voice, even though it has no words. And what he says is when that sun rises up in the morning and makes its circuit over me and you, that there's absolutely no place where the heat of that sun is hidden. 3 days ago, I was in my attic working on gas pipe. And let me tell you, the light of the sun was not penetrating my roof, but the heat was there. No place on this earth where you can get away from it when it's shining. Even when the clouds are up, you'll feel it. It penetrates. And it exposes and it heats. Everything that it touches, it affects it. And David is saying the glory of God is penetrating it all around us, and even to me and you, and there's nothing hidden from God's glory. You see that? This is important because we're going to look later on in the psalm, because there's something else later on in the psalm that's not hidden from him, that's very vital for me and you to understand if we want to see what God has for us in this reading. So David's going to shift. We'll begin reading in verse 7. The law of Yahweh is perfect. Why do I say Yahweh here and your Bible doesn't? I want to explain this really quickly because this is one of my disagreements with English Bible translators. I think to really mess this up. The reason we have Lord in a capital letter in place of Yahweh in most of our English translations is because of a Hebrew tradition. And that tradition was developed over the years, and they finally came to a place that says, my lips and your lips and the lips of no one who has been made that might be walking in rebellion or even hidden sin are holy enough to speak the word of God, and they cannot write it. So even in the Dead Sea Scrolls, when they brought up the book of Isaiah and all that you see in the Psalms, they had this in place of the word where Yahweh was supposed to be written as this chicken scratch. So we follow that tradition even today, and so did the writers of the New Testament. Paul followed it when he wrote his letters. But here's my problem with it. He was asked what his name was by Moses. And he didn't say, Moses, you ain't holy enough to speak my name. I'm not giving it to you. Not only did he give it to him, the scriptures, even David is declaring it boldly when he writes it. And we change that. Why is that important? Let's read and then we'll talk about it. The law of Yahweh is perfect, restoring the soul. The testimony of Yahweh is sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of Yahweh are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of Yahweh is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of Yahweh is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of Yahweh are true. They're righteous altogether. They're more desirable than gold, yes, than much pure gold, sweeter also than honey, and drippings from the honeycomb. Moreover, your servant is warned by them, and keeping them there is great reward. Circle the name of God who gives us the law, testimony, precepts, commandments, fear, and judgment. How many circles do you have at the end? You're going to have bunches of them. How many circles? 6 circles. David took the time to write the tetragrammaton, the name of God, Yahweh, which means I am or I be or I exist. I am always. I'm never not. I'm always, always. And David wrote it 6 times here. Notice that he didn't write it once when he spoke of creation speaking. He used the word God there. Why? Why the shift? If you're looking at a man's work, you can know what he's about, but you don't know the man. It speaks for him, but it's not personal. I can read a book on man. I can read in a book on anatomy and know all the parts of a man and how he works and how he ticks and all of those things. I can read a book on the mind and how it works, but I know man when I finish that, but I don't know Marcus. I don't know Mike. I only know man. Creation speaks in such a way that speaks for the one who created it, but it's not personal. And David's saying that if you want to know God in a personal way, you'll go to his word, because it's there that he reveals who he is, and he wants you to know him personally. If I want to know Mike, I got to go to his house. Mike's got to go to my house. We got to be involved in each other's lives. And Jesus is the one who has been revealed to the earth so that we can relate to him. And here is David declaring, Yahweh has visited me in a personal way through his word. He's showing me who he is so I can be his image and multiply that image. And the only way I can know him in a personal way is by reading his word. And that's why it's more valuable to me than all the gold in Israel. That's the reason it's more valuable to me than any wealth I could ever own. It's not the size of my house. It's the sweetness of his word. More than anything I could desire. David is after that. The law, testimony, precepts, commandments, fear, and judgments are more desirable than gold and sweeter than honey. The word of Yahweh gives us some things. David lists them here. And you can fill in the blank. New life, wisdom, happiness, discernment, fear, cleansing that endures for however long? Forever. The grass fades, but the word of the Lord will stand forever. It's always. And I need something solid to hang my life on, and so do you. So does all men. And here David is declaring that my anchor is in this thing. Yahweh gives new life. In other words, it revives me, changes me, converts me, if you will. There's several different ways to describe or translate the thought that's in that verse. But David is declaring that the Word of God is what has caused him to be different. I was 27, coming off my first submarine, and my second submarine, and landed back home here, and within 6 months, I was no longer a successful disciple-making heathen, single, and military. So in a very short period of time, I went from that to being a civilian, to being married, to being a parent, and to being a Christian. And as I began dating my wife-to-be, she invited me to go to church, and I didn't want to go. I mean, my pawpaw had asked me to pray, and I told him I was not going to be a hypocrite and pray to something that wasn't there. So why would I go to church? Gave me at least 50 minutes sitting next to her. And that was enough. So I went. And then I discovered Sunday school. That was another 45 minutes sitting next to her. But I'm one of those guys that when I take a class and it's time for the test, I want to make 100 and get the extra credit. Anybody like that here? I mean, I just, that was me. That's what I wanted. That's what I did when I was a soldier. When we had a test and I wanted to get everything. I wanted all the credit. That was my problem. But I went to Sunday school and I didn't have any of the answers. Everybody else had them and I didn't have them. So if you want to know the answers to the Sunday school lesson, what do you buy? You buy one of these. And I went to this bookstore at the mall. My mother-in-law had given us what was the name of that bookstore? Walden's Bookstore. And I looked for the fattest Bible that had all the extra stuff in it. NIV Study Bible. I'll never will forget it. I made 100 the next Sunday. I knew all the Sunday school answers. So I was patting myself, and I wasn't humiliated anymore. But I started reading this book. And this arrogant, know-everything guy began to appreciate the grit, the honesty, the goodness of this penetrating book that humiliated me to a place where in April of 1988, I realized I wanted to be part of God's family, and I wasn't. I asked God if there was any way He could love me. Not a lot of confidence that He could, because I knew me. This book had revealed me. And what was there wasn't the best. His answer was yes. Been loving me ever since then. And I'm striving to know Him by continuing to read the book. And by looking at each of you as you love each other and care about each other, so I can see the very image of God that I'm supposed to be and how I might multiply that image. Wisdom, happiness, discernment, fear. I want to focus on this one for a minute because our culture has eliminated it virtually, or at least tried to. You've seen the no fear shirts, and our children are not supposed to fear their daddy or their school teacher or their football coach or their pastor or anybody else, because it'd be wrong if they were afraid. You know what fear means in the Bible when you translate it? Some people say awe. It means respect. Yeah, it means that. But that's not the real meaning. Fear in the Bible means fear. It means I'm afraid. We look at the encounters with people when they came face to face to God, they didn't say, "Oh, I respect you." They went on the faces. They were afraid. Why? Because God's presence reveals our sin, and His judgment is imminent. Why is it important? Why does Scripture exalt fear to a level that we have demeaned in our country? Why would we not be afraid of God anymore and that be a good thing? Can't be. If it's exalted in the Scriptures and David is saying God's Word is sweet, and when I study about God and when He images Himself to me, I am given fear and that's sweet to me. Why was it sweet to Him? Because it's the beginning of wisdom. It's how I can know God, because if He reveals my sin to me, it drives me to His grace, because that's the only way I can manage it. And here we see that fear is a gift of God. Why does the servant desire Yahweh's words? Because they promise him that what? Disobedience brings, fill in the blank. Disobedience brings judgment, and obedience brings reward. Why is that a good thing? Writer of Hebrews says that if a believer is walking in disobedience and receives no discipline from God, that he is not legitimate. In other words, he's not a believer. God doesn't allow those who are his children to walk in disobedience without bringing some sort of judgment to turn them from that disobedience back to his presence. Why? Because he wants fellowship with me and you. Sin separates us from God. Once you believe in him, it doesn't change your relationship with him. You're his always. Any more than my son's disobedience would remove our fellowship, would remove our relationship. He's still my son. But it does ruin our fellowship. God wants that with us. We should want it with each other, and sin is the enemy of fellowship. Judgment is the cure that drives sin from me and you and between us so that we might have sweet fellowship again. And David wanted judgment to do that for him because he didn't want sin to destroy the image of God that he experienced through his word and the works of his glory. So he fought for it. Last is a prayer. David declares his trust in the works of God. He declares the sweetness of his word, and now he's going to pray. Who can discern his error? Speaking of his own, who can see that? Who can see hidden things in me that you can't see? Even maybe I can't see them. Only the one whose heat can penetrate all things. Acquit me of hidden faults. Also keep your servant back from presumptuous sins. Let them not rule over me. So it wasn't just the hidden things that he wanted to reveal. God's word also reveals to us the presumptuous things. David with Bathsheba wasn't an accident. That was a presumptuous sin. Nobody had to come afterwards and say, you know what you did was wrong. And he said, oh, I didn't know that. Every step of the way he knew he was wrong, and that was a presumptuous sin. And he doesn't, I believe he wrote this in after that because of what he's writing here. Keep me from presumptuous sins. Let them not rule over me. Then I'll be innocent. I'll be blameless of great wrongdoing. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, Yahweh, my rock and my redeemer. God's favor on me and you to empower the glory and the voice from the creation and to empower the word that we receive into our mind and our hearts. Apart from his grace, apart from his mercy, we can't take those two things and walk in obedience, and David knew the same thing. And he's saying, apart from your grace, apart from your favor, I will never be able to walk free of hidden sin. I will never be able to walk free of presumptuous sins rule over me. Help me, Yahweh, so that the meditation of my heart, the words of my mouth, as I live life, would image you in such a way that brings glory and honor to you, that would please you. I need him to do that for me. Do you need that to do that for you? What does David want him to quit of? Circle. That's the hidden fault. What does David want Yahweh to keep him from and not to allow it to rule over him? Circle the phrase. David trusted God's work, his word, and his grace. Those are the blanks on that one. And remember, I'm collecting this afterwards. I'll grade it. And then next Sunday, if you come, you'll be in the grade book. I have a little bit of time left, 8 minutes. I want to focus on the middle part of this. The word part of this, the Yahweh's precepts, commandments, judgments, all of those things that are there. The reason David knew about those things is because he read the scriptures. So, are we not going to that next slide? There we are. Study by the Center of Bible Engagement. This is kind of where the rubber meets the road, if you will, in our current time. They surveyed 40,000 people, 8 to 80. That's this little boy to Mike. And then we have, I love you, Mike. Their behaviors in relationship to different Christian inputs. Bible engagement 1 to 3 weeks, 1 to 3 days per week made virtually no impact on human behavior. Most church people don't look different than most people who are not in church. They divorce at the same rate. They have the same anger issues. They're walking in problems like most of the world. 1 to 3 days is basically Wednesday night prayer, Sunday school, and church. That's the engagement they're getting, and it's not making an impact. But when it goes to 4 days, there's a dramatic change in behavior. Not a small change, a big change. We're going to see that in just a second. And a Lifeway study on the disciplines that influence young adult Christian faithfulness. 8 out of 10 children who were raised in the church between age 18 and 23 walk away from it. And they're looking at those 2 that didn't and asking what influenced you to be there. And you're still there. You're still faithful. What kind of inputs came into you? And the number one wasn't prayer. The number one wasn't whether you went on a mission trip with the youth department. The number one wasn't church attendance. The number one was scripture reading. Number one influence. So what does it do from day 4, 5, 6, and 7 if you choose to read it? Feelings of loneliness dropped 30%. Anger issues dropped 32%. Is our country having any problem with anger? I know you're thinking maybe, that anger issue, that takes place in scary places like Chicago and New York, but we're okay here in Nederland, Port Neches. We're the Bulldogs and the Indians. What could go wrong? Bitterness, we're not okay here. Bitterness in relationships drops 40%. Alcoholism drops 57%. Sex outside of marriage, 68%. Feeling spiritually stagnant drops 60%. Guys, not just guys, but girls too, but mainly guys, viewing pornography drops 61%. There is a study out that says almost 50%, somewhere in that neighborhood, of any man sitting on a pew that's got access to a cell phone or a laptop is looking at pornography in the last week. And he's sitting in that church feeling guilty because of it. And this study is saying that if that kind of man can plug himself into God's Word as a discipline 4 days or more a week, that he will look at pornography. 61% chance. The Word of God is powerful. You see that. Sharing your faith jumps 200%. Making disciples, 230%. It makes a difference. It was sweet to David because it was powerful for him. It helped him with presumptuous sin. What do we do to fulfill our purpose to image God and multiply God's image? See and trust His works and the world around us and in each other, and read the Bible 4 days per week or more, and trust His words, and pray and receive Yahweh's righteousness. Because me and you will never be able to develop a righteousness for ourselves that pleases Him. We have to have the impartation, the great exchange, if you will, Jesus' righteousness in exchange for our sins on the cross. so that we might walk in newness of life. Victory, victory, victory. His righteousness. Amen. So before I pray, I got it beat by 3 minutes. You see, I pushed it a little bit in the first service, and Ryan was afraid I was probably going to take some liberties, so he told me 10 minutes till, Joey. And I was planning on taking some liberties. The Methodists were definitely going to beat you to Luby's if I'd had my way. No, I'm just kidding you. But seriously, when it comes to reading God's Word, a lot of us are not doing it. And we need to be. The number one reason for not doing it, given by those who are asked that are not doing it, is I don't have time. My life's full. Let me translate what that means. What that means is God's Word's not a priority for me. So if you want to walk in victory and have that power to help you be the image of God and multiply the image, if that's important to you, and it should be, because if you can do that, you'll be walking in your purpose and you'll have great joy when you see it happening. You'll be skipping around like a new calf. If you can adjust that priority and make a commitment before you walk out of here today, that I'm going to read God's Word in a disciplined way. I'm going to mark that on my calendar. I'm going to set apart time, and nothing else am I going to allow to interfere with that. We did that in my home in Ghana. We read it from 5:45 in the morning to 6:15, and we do that 6 days a week. Started that 2 years ago. We're doing that in Elway. We've read almost a third of the Bible. I've got 6 years old through 43. I'll be 44 next year. And it's making an impact in our house. It's made an impact in me. And it can make an impact in you. If you're not, would you stand as we pray? Could you do that? Let me pray for you. Just stand as we get ready to dismiss today. Ryan's not here to do that. I don't know if he's got somebody else set apart to do that. You or Brent is, okay. But let me pray for you as Brent comes forward. And I just want you to ask a question of yourself. Is this a priority for you? Be honest with you. I mean, we're the first person we tend to lie to. And be honest with you. Is this a priority for you? If it isn't, ask yourself the question, should it be? Does God's Word speak to me in such a way this morning that's telling me this should be a priority for me? If that's a yes for you, I want to pray for you. Would you let me do that? Let's bow our heads. Father in heaven, for those who have said yes to the need to make your Word and the revelation of your goodness and your person through it a priority in their week, that they would spend 4 days or more reading that Word, searching for the sweetness and the goodness of your person in it. Father, I pray that you would give them grace and mercy to set apart time in such a way where they can delve into you and you into them. In Jesus' holy and precious name, amen.
Grateful to have you here today worshiping on this holiday weekend, and we know folks are out traveling. Grateful to have Joey bring the word today. You're going to Ghana when? Wednesday? All right, so do be praying for them, just that their travel and everything will be safe and God-glorifying, and those continue to do that work. I just want to read Romans 15:13 as the benediction, but it says, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so by the power or dunamis of the Holy Spirit you may abound in hope." Be blessed. We'll see you next week.